In terms of what they did get, if we want to talk about the second base prospect too,
Yeah,
I don't want to butcher his name. If you want to, it's I don't want to butcher his name. So if you want to say it first,
yeah. I've gone and forgotten it.
how
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 you
you
Lee,
lead,
yeah,
how
How
you
you
lead.
Lee.
Okay.
So yeah, a kid from Taiwan. That you know, if you want to get into weird political discussions, they are known as Chinese Taipei for any athletic events because it's a strange colonized island or an island that was colonized and dominated by China and things like that. But um, yeah, he's a kid who has always been viewed as a kind of a gamer and with a good hit tool, and he made some noise last year in low A by performing pretty well. And this year, but he's also had a couple injuries. He had a broken wrist, I think, or a wrist injury, and so he hasn't hit for as much power this year, but he's still hitting for solid average. He gets on base, like you said. There's some defensive versatility. He's played shortstop, he's played third, he's played second. They mostly think that he's gonna play second base. And yeah, we're speculating he'll probably just head right to West Michigan, high A again. There is a chance maybe that they would bump him up to Double A Erie, depending on how much they like him. I have a feeling that they probably like him a lot, and probably more than ranking services indicate, just based on the skill set. So he could theoretically, slot into Erie and play some shortstop and some third base because Erie just lost Andrew Navigado, who was kind of, he's more of a veteran presence, but a guy that they've been counting on to play a lot of shortstop and a lot of third base. They also, they sent Gage Workman down to high A. They got Luis Santana there, so it's possible he could go to Double A. But I'm thinking high A West Michigan for the rest of the year, and yeah, I mean he's a top 10 prospect in their system. Hard to get upset about that. It's not like a super sexy high ceiling, but there's a potential average regular there, and the more guys like that you have, the more likely you're going to be able to field a solid team in the future.
Yeah, and like I said, he might not be the Tigers' everyday second baseman of the future. I mean, you obviously have Jace Young, you have Colt Keith who could move to second base, but I mean, if the Tigers are looking to compete in a year or two from now, he's a guy you could potentially trade to get a reliever or a pitcher to
Absolutely.
help improve your big league club. So I think they got the best player they possibly could. They obviously waited out the market as long as they could with Michael Lorenzen. I was looking at MLB Pipeline; he's now the Tigers' sixth best rated prospect, right behind Ty Madden, right in front of Peyton Graham. 20 years old, is hitting 283 in high A, 29 walks to 53 strikeouts. That was really what stood out to me. He didn't, from what I read, he didn't seem like an explosive athlete or a great runner. So it'll be interesting to see. He is, I guess, another Scott Harris guy. So we now have a couple of those guys down on the farm now.
Tiger Town. He said, "Can you talk about the prospect we got for Lorenzen?" We did talk about Hao-Yu-Lee earlier, but Rahelia wasn't here. So, Raj, if you want to give your thoughts on him, I
So
think
I
they might appreciate that.
Okay, so I did write an article you can find on TigerMinorLeagueReport.com, and I'm going to post it here on the chat. Lee is a guy who kind of crowds the play a little bit, but he's kind of pulled away from pulling the ball so much, and he's starting to make his pull percentage went from like 43% to like 32. And so he's a guy who has some pop. He broke his wrist, or he sprained. I think he had some. Oh, I'm sorry, he fractured his wrist last year, and so a lot of that power that he did have, it cost him a little bit. So that's where the upside about that is he does have potential power. He has a big body. He worked with Adam Everett, former Tiger, who is the fielding instructor for the Phillies, and he is a guy who really works his ass off. He's a red ass, if you will, and so the fact he was talking, David Loria from Fangraphs pointed out that he talks smack in Chinese, which I thought was pretty funny. But he's a guy who's going to go after it, and so that's really what it is. As far as in terms of how he's going to fit into their plans with Young, the fact that he can play third and short also helps his cause. So he does have good hands again, but he was working more on his feet, and that's was something he was trying to work on. So I like this move a lot because it was a guy who, if you look at the number again, doesn't strike out a lot either, walks a lot, but he makes really good contact. And so if you're hitting 20 years old, hitting 279 in high A, that's definitely worth something considering that I think if we're gonna and this is the and this by the way this is the final year we're gonna compare the Al Avila era because I always do this or we've done this a lot. Um, I don't know if he would have, like, it's. I don't know if we would have gotten something like this smart from Avila. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that for sure because I know that's
Yeah.
going to be the same thing again. And it's 3-0 Pirates. So it's
Another.
just
Hey, that's a quality Pirates team, right?
Oh yeah,
No,
another rough start for Manning. At least to start off, but
well, yeah, I think to Roger's point, yeah, we talked about Hao-Yu-Lee, like he's a quality prospect. I think that he's 2 years older, slightly less than 2 years older than Kevin McGonigal. If Kevin McGonigal were hitting 280 in high A 2 years from now, I think people would be fairly excited about him as a prospect. Probably have him in the top 10 in the system. So he's progressing nicely. I think that's kind of what you're looking for. I think that if you look at Lee's body, he looks like there's he can add some more strength. He's already pretty filled out, so it's not going to be
yeah.
like a guy who's just going to, get bigger and stronger. But he looks like he's got some muscle and can turn on the ball. And there are a couple home runs you can see online where he does really turn on the ball. It's kind of fun. Um, yeah, you just kind of hope for an optimized version of him that maybe, who knows, maybe turns into an Isaac Paredes who is hitting 230 and banging 25 homers or something like that. But uh, hopefully he can become an average hitter with average power and play a solid second base. And somebody asked, like, are we worried about the Tigers seem to have a lot of second base prospects, and these things just always work themselves out, right? Like
I was just gonna say he's planning on moving. A lot of these guys is gonna move around. They're not gonna be at one position. Just as a heads up, that's the way I got the impression. So
yeah, I don't think Jace Young can really play anywhere else than second base. Keith can move around. Lee can move around. McGonigal probably can move around a little bit. He may stick at second base. That's it. But again, like, not all these guys are going to work out. That's just the way it goes. Look at the Orioles we talked about. They have a massive log jam of infielders, and they traded one of them. They still have basically all the other guys left.
they still have an army. They still have an army.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Because you never know. And it's nice to have the depth, so I wouldn't worry about that just yet. And I think as John mentioned earlier, if it does work out, you could always turn around, trade Lee, or trade McGonigal, or trade Young, trade Keith, any of those guys, if you feel like you can go for it next year or the year after.
yeah. And in terms of like keeping him, I hate to like keep bringing up the comparison to the Giants, but that 2021 Giants team had so many moving pieces, had so many versatile players, so many platoons. I mean, you think of a platoon of Jace Young and Lee, a platoon of Colt Keith and Lee, a platoon of McGonigal and Lee, and his ability to move all around the field. I mean, we talked about a couple podcasts ago about the Tigers farm system being so left-handed, a lot of left-handed bats. Well, they now get a right-handed bat that can complement some of those players. So he is a guy that it's funny because we were talking about Dave Dombrowski a couple podcasts ago about how when Dave Dombrowski found a player he wanted, he would just go for him. And it's kind of ironic. It kind of seems like that's happened with this trade with the Tigers, which was a trade with Dave Dombrowski where the Tigers kind of identified a player they want and they went and got him. And I think he fits really well with the young players they also have in their system and, could be a piece to their infield in a couple of years.